Among history's most remarkable figures, two women stand whose strength and legacy still echo across centuries: Anna of Austria, Queen of Spain, and Maria Anna of Spain, Holy Roman Empress. Each carved her legacy across empires, navigating duty, sacrifice, and diplomacy in an age of shifting crowns and silent queens. Let us begin with the first, Anna of Austria, Queen of Spain, who was born on the 2nd of November in the year 1549 in Sigales, in the crown of Castile. What connected these women was not just blood, but the immense pressure of being born Habsburg. One became queen to her own uncle, Philip II of Spain, while the other would cross mountains and politics to become Holy Roman Empress. What price did they pay to protect dynasties? Did love have any space in their regal duties? And how did their roles as mothers shape the future of empires? Please watch my full video until the end, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please make sure to share it with your friends. Thank you. Now, let us dive into the full story. Born into one of the most powerful dynasties in Europe, Anna was the first child of Maximilian II, Holy Roman Emperor, and Maria of Spain. Her birth symbolized a renewed alliance between Austrian and Spanish crowns. Though born in Spain during her grandfather Charles V's reign, she moved to Vienna at the age of 4, raised in the imperial court with all its grandeur, expectations, and strict Catholic values. Her father adored her, famously postponing a political session when Anna fell ill. This bond between father and daughter would echo throughout her life, shaping her loyalty and patience as a future queen. Even as a child, Anna stood at the crossroads of empire, where identity and duty blurred long before a crown ever touched her head. Anna of Austria's early years were shaped by a life split between worlds, Spanish by birth, Austrian by upbringing. At the age of 4, she left the Castilian landscape behind and entered the heart of Habsburg, Austria. Vienna, with its stately palaces and imperial rituals, became her true home. Here, she was raised alongside her siblings under the watchful eyes of tutors, governesses, and clergy. The family's Catholic piety shaped every moment of her education, preparing her not only as a royal daughter but also as a future bride to cement dynastic alliances. Among the many children of Maximilian II and Maria of Spain, Anna stood out. She was graceful, curious, and keenly observant. But above all, she was beloved, especially by her father. He famously adored her company and even postponed a meeting of the Hungarian Diet when she fell sick, a rare moment when personal affection overruled imperial business. Though she played like any other child, Anna's games were never far from courtly ceremony. She stitched needlework with care, listened to court musicians, and walked through marble halls where portraits of ancestors stared down as silent reminders of duty. From her earliest days, she was being trained to live within boundaries, not of stone, but of loyalty and sacrifice. The grandeur of her childhood masked the quiet message she was constantly taught. Her future belonged to her family, not to herself. As Anna blossomed into a young woman, her royal blood made her a valuable prize on the chessboard of European politics. Her parents, Maximilian II and Maria of Spain, knew that a well-chosen marriage could fortify Habsburg unity across borders. Their eyes quickly turned toward Spain, and an initial plan began to take shape. Anna would marry her cousin, Don Carlos, the troubled and only son of Philip II of Spain. The match seemed ideal on paper. Two Habsburgs joined in a union that would reinforce dynastic ties. But beneath the surface, shadows loomed. Don Carlos, though heir to the Spanish throne, was plagued by emotional instability and erratic behavior. Stories of his violent outbursts and dangerous temper reached Vienna. Yet despite the concerns, the plan moved forward until tragedy struck. In the year 1568, Don Carlos died unexpectedly under mysterious circumstances. Rumors of illness, imprisonment, and even political foul play filled European courts. For Anna, the end of this engagement wasn't just a lost alliance, it was the first close brush with royal fragility. She had never met Don Carlos in person, but his name and future had been stitched into hers. Now, with his death, a vacuum opened, and so did new possibilities. Anna's destiny with Spain was not over. In fact, it had just begun, but this time it would be far more personal. The next man proposed for her hand would not be a cousin, but an uncle, Philip II himself. After the death of Don Carlos and the sudden passing of Philip II's third wife, Elizabeth of Valois, Spain was once again without a male heir. With only two young daughters, Isabella Clara Eugenia and Catalina Michaela, the pressure to secure the succession mounted. The answer, to some, was unthinkable. King Philip II would marry his own niece, Anna of Austria. The proposal shocked many across Europe. Marriages between close blood relatives were not unusual in royal houses, but an uncle-niece union still stirred deep unease. The match required not only political maneuvering, but also a papal dispensation. Pope Pius V was among the loudest critics, expressing concern over the close consanguinity. But dynastic interests ultimately triumphed over religious hesitation. In February of 1569, the engagement was formally announced. The political symbolism was powerful. Anna's marriage would reunite the Austrian and Spanish branches of the Habsburg dynasty, once again reinforcing their grip over much of Europe. But behind the royal portrait smiles, Anna was still only 19, about to marry a man 22 years her senior, a man who was both her sovereign and her uncle. For Anna, the engagement was not a choice but a duty, yet she faced it with grace. Raised in the heart of empire, she had always known that love might never be part of her destiny. Instead, she prepared for the long journey to Spain, leaving behind the familiar marble courts of Vienna for a life that would test her strength in unimaginable ways. Anna's journey from Austria to Spain was more than a royal relocation. It was a carefully orchestrated political procession. In the autumn of 1570, she departed Vienna with her brothers, Archdukes Albert and Wenceslaus, and a vast entourage of nobles, attendants, and clerics. The long route carried them through the Holy Roman Empire and the Netherlands, with each stop reflecting the grandeur expected of a future queen. Passing through the English Channel, her convoy received an unusual gesture of diplomacy. Queen Elizabeth of England, despite being a Protestant monarch, sent Admirals Charles Howard and William Winter to offer safe passage. It was a rare moment of respect from one queen to another, even as political tensions simmered between Spain and England. But not all encounters were warm. In the Netherlands, Anna was approached by friends and relatives of Floris of Montigny, a nobleman imprisoned by King Philip since 1567. They pleaded for mercy, hoping Anna's arrival would soften the king's heart. She gave her word that she would advocate for Floris's release. Sadly, her promise went unfulfilled. Just days before Anna reached Philip's court, Floris was secretly executed by royal order. On the 3rd of October, Anna stepped onto Spanish soil. The welcome was majestic, golden carriages, ringing bells, and carefully choreographed pageantry. Yet behind the beauty lay a quiet warning. In Spain, even queens had limits. Anna was now in the heart of power, and she would soon learn what that truly meant. As Anna's royal caravan passed through the Spanish Netherlands, a storm of political tension lingered in the air. The region was in turmoil, with rebellions flaring and noble families walking a tightrope between loyalty and resistance. Among the most delicate of issues was the imprisonment of Floris of Montigny, the younger brother of Count of Horn, a nobleman executed by Philip II for treason. Floris had been held in Spain since 1567, caught in the web of Habsburg suppression against dissent in the Low Countries. When Anna arrived in the Netherlands during her journey to Spain, members of Floris's family and sympathizers seized the moment. They appealed to Anna directly, hoping that her impending role as queen would give weight to their plea. She listened with empathy, publicly promising to intercede on Floris's behalf. But while Anna was still traveling, the decision had already been made. On the 16th of October, just days before she was to meet her husband, Floris was quietly strangled in prison on Philip's command. His death sent shockwaves through the Netherlands and stained Anna's arrival with sorrow. She had barely entered Spanish territory when the limits of her influence were made brutally clear. This tragic episode was a silent lesson. Anna may wear a crown, but the king's will would always outweigh her own. Even her genuine kindness, so evident to those who met her, could not undo decisions made behind palace walls. In Spain, gestures of mercy had no place beside political necessity. Anna's arrival at the Spanish court marked the beginning of a new chapter, both for her and for a kingdom in need of gentle balance. The Spanish court, known for its rigid decorum and formal silence, was often somber under Philip II's austere rule. But with Anna's entry, a subtle warmth began to ripple through the marble halls. She was welcomed by a newly formed royal household under the guidance of Margarita de Cardona, a seasoned lady-in-waiting who had once served Anna's own mother. Surrounded by familiar figures, Anna quickly adjusted to her new role. Courtiers were struck by her serene presence and quiet intelligence. She possessed the grace of a Habsburg and the charm of a young queen eager to serve her role with dignity. Anna rarely involved herself in politics, but her influence came through softer means, needlework circles, religious observances, and private conversations with the king. Her compassion, her cheerfulness, and her modesty slowly softened the stiff courtly atmosphere. Even the king's daughters, Isabella Clara Eugenia and Catalina Michaela, grew close to her, guided more by affection than obligation. While others saw power in titles and decrees, Anna embodied a quieter strength, the kind that won hearts, not wars. Her place was not on the battlefield of politics, but in the silent spaces where influence grows without being declared. As Spain moved forward with ambitions and conquests, Anna offered something rarer: peace within the palace walls. Unlike many royal marriages of the time, the union between Anna and Philip II grew into something more than alliance. It became a bond of genuine affection. Despite their age difference and the unusual nature of their uncle-niece relationship, Philip was reportedly deeply attached to his young bride. Courtiers whispered that she was his most beloved wife, not just in name but in truth. Their relationship was marked by quiet tenderness. Philip, though a busy monarch, made time for Anna in both word and gesture. He sent her frequent notes, sometimes twice a week, and visited her chambers as many as 3 times a day. For a king known for his cold demeanor and rigid formality, this was rare devotion. Anna, in return, was warm, supportive, and dignified. She understood Philip's burden as a ruler and never overstepped her place. Yet within their private world, she became his trusted confidante. Their bond was not built on grandeur, but on everyday acts, shared prayers, family meals, and long conversations behind closed doors. There were no reports of mistresses during their marriage, a notable contrast to many kings of the era. Anna brought not just stability to the palace, but also comfort to Philip's otherwise heavy existence. In a world where marriages were forged for strategy, theirs bloomed into companionship. Together, they built not just a lineage, but a haven if only for a while, in the heart of Europe's most powerful court. For a queen, the birth of sons often defined success. And Anna of Austria gave her husband, Philip II, what he desperately needed: heirs. Over a decade of marriage, she bore him 5 children, including 4 sons. Each birth was greeted with joy and hope across the Spanish court. Yet one by one, tragedy followed celebration. Their first son, Ferdinand, Prince of Asturias, was born in 1571. Bright, strong, and beloved, he seemed destined to inherit the throne. But in 1578, at just 6 years old, he died suddenly, a devastating blow to the king and queen. Anna then gave birth to Carlos Lorenzo, who passed away before reaching his 2nd birthday. Then came Diego, another prince of Asturias, whose health showed promise, until illness claimed him in 1582, at only 7. These repeated losses etched grief into Anna's otherwise gentle face. Though she remained composed in public, close attendants noted how deeply she mourned in silence. Each tiny coffin carried not just a child, but the fading dream of a secure future for Spain. Finally, in 1578, Anna gave birth to a son who would survive Philip, the future Philip III of Spain. But even his existence was shadowed by the siblings who came and went before him. And in 1580, she bore her last child, a daughter named Maria, who, too, would die young. Anna's legacy would endure, but only through one son who survived the sorrow that took so many before him. Amid years of heartbreak and the loss of 3 sons, a single birth rekindled hope in the Spanish court. On the 3rd of April in the year 1578, Queen Anna gave birth to a son named Philip, a fragile infant upon whose survival the weight of an empire quietly rested. Unlike his brothers before him, this child lived. From the very beginning, young Philip was watched with extraordinary care. Physicians, nurses, and priests hovered around him as if his every breath ensured the continuity of Spain's royal line. Anna, though still grieving the loss of her earlier children, poured her energy into nurturing this one remaining son. Her love was tender yet tempered with the caution of a mother who had seen too many small lives vanish too soon. King Philip II, known for his formality, allowed himself rare moments of joy around the boy. He began to see in his son not just a successor, but a continuation of the order he had spent his reign defending. With the child's every milestone, his first step, his first words, the court rejoiced anew. Anna, however, remained grounded. She knew that survival in royal courts was never guaranteed, and that the boy's future would be shaped not only by blood but by the burdens of inheritance. In this child lived the culmination of her role as queen, not through grand speeches or conquest, but through the quiet perseverance of motherhood. Spain now had a future, and Anna had a legacy that would outlive her. By the year 1580, Queen Anna's life had become more serene, though the weight of repeated grief never fully lifted. As Spain pursued its dynastic claim to the Portuguese throne, the royal court temporarily relocated to Badajoz, a frontier town near the Portuguese border. There, in the modest halls far from Madrid's grandeur, Anna entered the final chapter of her short but meaningful life. Despite physical exhaustion from years of childbirth and courtly duty, Anna remained devoted to her family. In February of 1580, she gave birth to her 5th surviving child, a daughter named Maria. Though weakened, she appeared hopeful, quietly tending to her newborn and supporting her husband as he prepared to unify the Iberian crowns. But fate intervened swiftly and cruelly. That autumn, influenza swept through Badajoz, claiming the lives of many, including the Queen herself. On the 26th of October in the year 1580, at only 30 years of age, Anna of Austria passed away. The court was plunged into mourning, and King Philip, stoic in public, was said to be devastated in private. At first, she was buried in Badajoz, close to where she had drawn her final breath. Later, her remains were transferred to El Escorial, the royal mausoleum where Spain's most powerful rest in eternal silence. Anna's death left a void not just in Philip's life, but in the soul of the Spanish monarchy. She had brought gentleness to an iron throne, and in losing her, Spain lost its most human queen. Queen Anna's passing in Badajoz in the autumn of 1580 was more than a personal loss for King Philip. It was a moment of national mourning. At just 30 years old, Anna had become a symbol of quiet devotion, maternal resilience, and royal stability. Her unexpected death during an influenza outbreak stunned the court, silencing ceremonies and stalling celebrations planned for Portugal's annexation. Initially, her body was interred locally in Badajoz, near the border she had followed for her husband's imperial ambitions. But Spain does not forget its queens so easily. In time, a royal decision was made. Anna would be laid to rest among kings and emperors at El Escorial. El Escorial, the vast granite monastery palace northwest of Madrid, was Philip's most ambitious architectural project. Built as a symbol of Catholic might and Habsburg legacy, it also served as a dynastic tomb. Anna's remains were transported with solemn reverence, crossing the dry lands of Castile under a shroud of mourning bells and prayers. Within El Escorial's royal crypt, she was placed alongside Philip's other consorts, but her memory endured uniquely. Courtiers remembered her grace. The people spoke of her kindness, and Philip himself, despite remarrying later, was said never to love again with the same quiet depth. In the cold stone halls of El Escorial, Anna's presence lingers, not through monuments or military conquest, but through a legacy carved in gentleness. Hers was a queenship not of command but of character, and that, perhaps, is what endures longest of all. Anna of Austria left behind no sweeping reforms, no proclamations of war or peace. Yet her legacy endures, not in the thunder of politics, but in the quiet endurance of queenship and motherhood. In a world ruled by men, where women were often tools of alliance and heirs, Anna carved her space through gentleness, stability, and grace. As Queen of Spain, she brought emotional balance to a court burdened by duty and decorum. Her influence softened not policy, but people. Nobles, servants, and visiting envoys alike noted her warmth, her humility, and her attentiveness. She asked for little and gave much, a trait rare in royal circles. As a mother, Anna endured unbearable loss, 3 sons buried before their 8th birthdays, and yet she remained present, nurturing, and devoted. Her surviving son, Philip III, would one day ascend the Spanish throne, shaped in part by the compassion and reserve he witnessed in his mother. Though history often judges monarchs by their public achievements, Anna's contribution was deeply personal, building character in a future king. Even as stepmother, she showed unwavering care. Her relationship with Isabella Clara Eugenia and Catalina Michaela was marked by genuine affection, not mere obligation. In her short life, Anna taught a lesson that outlived her: power need not always shout. Sometimes, the firmest foundations are built in silence, through loyalty, love, and an unwavering sense of duty. And in that, she left behind a legacy few could rival. Anna of Austria's life was more than a royal journey. It was a testament to the intricate and often inescapable web of Habsburg bloodlines. Born of one branch and married into another, she symbolized the dynasty's enduring strategy: unity through intermarriage. Her very existence was political, a living bond between the Austrian and Spanish crowns. The Habsburgs believed deeply in blood loyalty. Cousins became spouses, nieces became queens, and dynasties were preserved through tightly woven unions. Anna's marriage to her uncle Philip II was not just a personal sacrifice, it was an institutional necessity. Through her, two branches of a divided empire were stitched back together, reinforcing Catholic strength across Europe. But the price of such loyalty was steep. Like many Habsburg women, Anna bore the burden of silence, submission, and expectation. Her choices were not hers to make, they were mapped out in family councils and papal dispensations. And yet, within those constraints, she found purpose. Her son, Philip III, would go on to rule Spain. Her brother, Rudolph II, ruled as Holy Roman Emperor, and her daughter Maria, though she died young, carried her name and spirit. The echo of Anna's life rippled through courts and centuries, not in grandeur, but in continuation. She was not the loudest Habsburg, nor the most politically influential, but she was the thread that held dynasties together, strong, invisible, essential. In every sense, she fulfilled the Habsburg ideal, duty above self, legacy above comfort, and family above all. Anna of Austria's story ends not with finality, but with a quiet passing of the torch. Though she died young, her presence lingered in Spain's palaces, her influence carried forward by those who remembered her grace. In the shadows of royal tapestries and whispered prayers at El Escorial, Anna became more than memory. She became a symbol of Habsburg womanhood, obedient, enduring, and essential. But the Habsburg story was far from over. A new chapter awaits, one that will follow another remarkable woman of royal blood, whose journey will take us beyond Spain's borders and into the heart of empire. Let us now turn to another remarkable figure of royal descent, a woman shaped by the same Habsburg legacy, but destined for an empire beyond Spain. Infanta Maria, Anna of Spain, was born on the 18th of August in the year 1606 at the palace of El Escorial in the Crown of Castile. From the beginning, Maria Anna's life was steeped in politics and prophecy. She was not just the daughter of King Philip III and Queen Margaret of Austria. She was a carefully groomed instrument of dynastic power. Her bloodline traced directly back to Philip II and Queen Anna of Austria, making her both niece and spiritual heir to the very woman whose story we have just told. But Maria Anna was no quiet shadow. She was intelligent, lively, and deeply anchored in her Spanish identity, a woman who would carry that cultural pride across borders and into the heart of the Holy Roman Empire. First betrothed to cousins and courted by kings, including England's Prince of Wales, her fate took unexpected turns. How did this princess of Spain become Empress of the Holy Roman Empire? What strength did she carry across a continent shaken by war, plague, and political division? And how did she balance loyalty to Spain with her role as the empire's leading lady? Her journey, though born in the same halls as Anna of Austria, would echo across even wider lands, and history would remember her not merely as a consort, but as a regent, mother, and force in her own right. Maria Anna of Spain was born into one of the most tightly bound dynasties in European history. As the daughter of King Philip III and Queen Margaret of Austria, her early life unfolded within the walls of El Escorial, the solemn palace monastery where politics, piety, and power coexisted. From infancy, she was groomed not simply as a princess, but as a future wife for empire building. She was the fourth child in a household shaped by tradition, devotion, and dynastic calculation. Her surviving siblings included Anna, who would become Queen of France, Philip, future King Philip IV of Spain, and Ferdinand, who would one day govern the Spanish Netherlands. In this world, children were not just heirs, they were pawns of alliance. And Maria Anna, bright and observant, understood her role early. Her education emphasized obedience, Catholic virtue, and royal poise. She studied music, languages, court etiquette, and theology, all essential for a life likely to unfold far from home. At a young age, she was engaged to Archduke John Charles of Austria, the son of Emperor Ferdinand II and her own maternal uncle. It was a carefully arranged match that promised to solidify the Austrian-Spanish-Habsburg alliance. But fate intervened. John Charles died in 1618 before the marriage could take place. For Maria Anna, it was the first of several engagements that would collapse under the weight of death, politics, or religion, and a sign that her royal path would be anything but straightforward. In the early 17th century, one of Europe's most controversial diplomatic episodes centered around a young Spanish infanta, Maria Anna, and the Protestant heir to the English throne, Prince Charles. Known in history as the Spanish Match, this proposed union between Catholic Spain and Protestant England set off a political firestorm across both kingdoms. The idea was bold, uniting two rival empires through marriage. England, under King James I, hoped the alliance would bring peace, trading advantages and prestige. Spain, cautious yet intrigued, saw potential in managing relations with an often hostile Protestant power. But for Maria Anna, the matter was far more personal. In 1623, Prince Charles, accompanied by the Duke of Buckingham, traveled incognito to Madrid to court her directly, an unprecedented act that startled the Spanish court. But Maria Anna was deeply devout. She refused to marry a man who would not convert to Catholicism. She made her discomfort known and resisted pressure from both sides. Negotiations dragged for months, but ultimately collapsed under mutual mistrust and religious divide. English courtiers viewed Spain as deceptive, while Spaniards feared Protestant influence on their devout princess. The proposed wedding never happened. Prince Charles returned home empty-handed, and England's hope for a Spanish alliance faded. For Maria Anna, the episode reinforced a lesson she already knew well: royal women were powerful symbols, but they could rarely choose whom to love. Her path would now turn back toward her own family's empire, and toward another Habsburg match, this time destined to succeed. After the collapse of the English alliance, Maria Anna's future returned firmly to Habsburg hands. In late 1626, new marriage negotiations began, this time with Archduke Ferdinand of Austria, the younger brother of her late fiancé and son of Emperor Ferdinand II. Once again, the match united two Habsburg lines, Spanish and Austrian, a strategy long favored by the dynasty to preserve power. Ferdinand had recently been crowned King of Hungary and Bohemia, rising fast within the imperial structure. Maria Anna, already experienced with failed engagements and diplomatic tension, was now betrothed to a man who shared her blood, faith, and purpose. Their engagement, though formalized in 1628, followed years of careful negotiations involving inheritance rights, dowry conditions, and religious authority. One point of contention was spiritual guidance. Ferdinand preferred that her confessor be the Jesuit Ambrosio de Penalosa, while Maria Anna's court favored a Capuchin friar, Diego Quiroga. In the end, her side prevailed, an early sign that Maria Anna would not arrive in Austria without influence of her own. Unlike other royal arrangements, this engagement had a surprising ingredient: mutual anticipation. Ferdinand was eager to meet his Spanish bride, yet even he did not fully trust the portraits sent to Vienna. He would insist on seeing her in person before final vows, a moment that would come in secret, and one that would shape the future of their unexpected love story. But before that meeting, Maria Anna would first begin a long and symbolic journey across kingdoms and cultures toward her new imperial life. Maria Anna's journey from Madrid to Vienna was more than a royal procession. It was a carefully choreographed, diplomatic and spiritual mission. Though her engagement to Ferdinand had been finalized in 1628, she would not depart Spain until December of 1629. The delay reflected the complexity of preparing a princess for life in a new empire, and the importance of every step along the way. Her route included several symbolic stops. In Genoa, the party was forced to detour due to a deadly outbreak of plague in the Italian peninsula. Planned ceremonies in Bologna were cancelled, including a grand presentation of the Golden Rose, a papal honor meant to bless her marriage. Instead, Maria Anna received the award later in Naples, under more cautious conditions. Along her journey, she was accompanied by elite members of the Roman aristocracy. Taddeo Barberini, nephew of Pope Urban VIII, personally escorted her across the Papal States. Their presence turned her passage into a public show of alliance between Spain, the Vatican, and the Holy Roman Empire. In Loreto, Maria Anna made a deeply personal pilgrimage to the Basilica della Santa Casa, the holy house said to be the Virgin Mary's home. It was a sign of her sincere Catholic devotion and a symbolic act as she stepped into a future full of uncertainty. Despite delays and dangers, Maria Anna moved forward with poise. She was not just entering another marriage, she was entering the heart of imperial power. And Austria awaited its Spanish bride with great anticipation. As Maria Anna approached the borders of the Holy Roman Empire, tradition dictated that the final stretch of her journey be made alone, without her Spanish retinue. It was a symbolic shedding of old loyalties before assuming her new imperial role. But Ferdinand, eager to see his bride before ceremony stripped away intimacy, defied protocol. In a forest near the Tyrolean border, he arranged a secret meeting. Disguised and unannounced, Ferdinand entered her camp and introduced himself. Their encounter was brief but sincere. To his relief, Maria Anna was even more graceful and composed than her portraits had suggested. Their eyes met not just as strangers, but as equals soon to be bound by blood, faith, and crown. The formal marriage was conducted by proxy shortly after, in the city of Vienna. Maria Anna was not yet physically present, but a representative stood in her place as vows were exchanged. This was a common Habsburg practice, a way to ensure the legal and religious sanctity of the union before the bride's final arrival. The proxy wedding was followed by modest celebrations and fervent anticipation. Across Vienna, the people buzzed with curiosity about their new empress-to-be. Maria Anna's Spanish grace and pious reputation had preceded her. For Maria Anna, the secret meeting brought comfort. And though her wedding had begun with ritual distance, it would soon become real not only in presence but in partnership. Her next steps would take her into the heart of Austria and into a marriage that would define an era. On the 15th of February in the year 1631, Maria Anna of Spain arrived in Vienna, the heart of the Holy Roman Empire. Her entry into the city was a spectacle of splendor. Draped in fine Spanish silks and escorted by imperial guards, she was greeted with cheering crowds, grand arches, and choruses singing hymns of welcome. Though she was already married by proxy, the official wedding ceremony with Ferdinand was still to take place. The Habsburg court spared no expense. Days of public festivals, parades, and religious services unfolded across Vienna. Nobles from across the empire arrived to witness the union. Tapestries were hung, bells rang from cathedral towers, and feasts were held in her honor. On the day of the ceremony, Maria Anna stood in the grand cathedral adorned in regal attire, her poise a blend of Spanish austerity and imperial dignity. Ferdinand, now king of the Romans and soon to be emperor, stood beside her not just as a ruler, but as a man clearly taken with his bride. The wedding mass was long and solemn, conducted with Latin chants, golden vestments, and heavy incense. But beyond the tradition lay something rare, genuine warmth between the couple. Their smiles were modest but sincere, noticed by many courtiers. This moment marked not only the beginning of their marriage, but also Maria Anna's full transition from Spanish infanta to Holy Roman Empress in waiting. She had crossed mountains and crossed expectations, and now she stood at the threshold of power with grace and resolve. Though Maria Anna had crossed borders to enter Austria, she never abandoned her Spanish roots. Upon becoming the imperial consort, she brought with her not only attendants and traditions, but a distinct spiritual and cultural identity that began reshaping the Viennese court from within. Deeply devout, Maria Anna insisted on preserving Spanish Catholic customs in her daily life. She began each morning with private mass, maintained her confessor from Spain, and followed religious fasts with unwavering discipline. The scent of Spanish incense and the rhythm of Castilian prayer became regular features in imperial chapels. She also influenced the ceremonial life of court. Her insistence on Spanish etiquette brought a new sense of formality, a more rigid structure that mirrored the grandeur of Madrid's royal household. Even her wardrobe reflected home, layered silks, dark lace veils, and fans that clicked softly through marble corridors. Yet her presence was not stifling. She earned respect, even admiration, for her gentleness, education, and firm faith. Austrian courtiers, initially skeptical of the Spanish ways, slowly adapted. Ferdinand himself supported her preferences, seeing in them a strengthening of imperial dignity and Catholic identity. Maria Anna's influence extended to the arts and learning as well. She sponsored composers, theologians, and painters with Iberian styles. Through her, Vienna became not just a center of empire, but a place where Spanish soul met Central European authority. In the halls of Habsburg Palace, her voice echoed softly, not loud, but lasting. Through devotion and elegance, she transformed a court, one quiet gesture at a time. Maria Anna's role as Empress extended far beyond the ceremonial. In an age when women were expected to remain in the background, she became one of Emperor Ferdinand III's most trusted advisors, respected not only for her intellect, but for her intuition, steadiness, and diplomatic instincts. From the very start of their marriage, Ferdinand confided in her. He sought her views on political appointments, military matters, and even imperial correspondence. Their private discussions often influenced public decisions, though she rarely claimed credit. It was a partnership of quiet strength, rooted in mutual respect and shared faith. Her Spanish upbringing played a vital role. Having been raised in the strict court of Philip III, Maria Anna understood the mechanisms of power and the delicate balance of European alliances. She had witnessed the fragility of peace between Catholic and Protestant states and brought that awareness into her husband's reign. During the height of the 30 Years' War, when Europe was engulfed in chaos, her presence offered calm at court. Diplomats noted her ability to listen carefully, her measured words, and her loyalty to the Habsburg cause above all else. She wrote letters, gave audiences, and advised Ferdinand discreetly behind closed doors. But perhaps most remarkable was how she managed all this while preserving her role as wife and mother. She embodied grace without surrendering her authority, proving that empresses could be both symbols and strategists. In a male-dominated empire, Maria Anna's voice mattered, not through speeches, but through decisions that echoed from palace corridors to the battlefield. For Maria Anna, motherhood was not merely personal, it was a dynastic duty. As Holy Roman Empress, She was expected to secure the Habsburg line through healthy heirs, and she fulfilled that expectation with devotion despite the physical toll it exacted. Over the course of her marriage, Maria Anna gave birth to 7 children. Among them was the most crucial, Ferdinand IV, born in 1633, who would be crowned King of the Romans and designated as heir to the imperial throne. His birth was celebrated across the empire as a divine sign of continuity, proof that the Habsburg grip on power would endure another generation. But motherhood was not without heartbreak. Several of her children died in infancy or early childhood, and each loss weighed heavily on her fragile health. Still, she never withdrew. Even while enduring repeated pregnancies, she continued to advise her husband, receive ambassadors, and oversee court life with discipline and care. Maria Anna also took an active interest in her children's upbringing, particularly their spiritual and educational formation. Tutors, confessors, and court officials were carefully selected, often under her direct supervision. She ensured they were raised as loyal Catholics, steeped in Habsburg values, and trained for leadership. In a time when royal women were often reduced to vessels of inheritance, Maria Anna shaped the character of future rulers. Her legacy lived not only through bloodlines, but through the principles and strength she instilled in her children. Through them, her voice would echo into the next era of imperial history. In the spring of 1645, the Holy Roman Empire stood at a crossroads. The 30 Years' War had dragged on for decades, draining resources and tearing Europe apart. At this critical moment, Emperor Ferdinand III was called to the front lines, leaving Vienna without its ruler. In his absence, he appointed Maria Anna as regent of the empire. It was a rare honor for a woman, even a Habsburg empress. Yet Maria Anna accepted the responsibility with calm resolve. She stepped into governance not as a placeholder, but as an active decision-maker, issuing decrees, receiving envoys, and overseeing council deliberations. The court, long accustomed to her quiet strength, now witnessed it fully in action. Reports from the time describe her leadership as balanced and composed. She prioritized defense, managed provisions for troops, and corresponded regularly with Ferdinand to coordinate political moves. Even in moments of tension, she remained the steady center of the imperial court, but the burdens were immense. The war's chaos crept closer to Austria, and uncertainty loomed over every decision. As a mother, she worried for her children. As a leader, she carried the weight of a fracturing empire. Still, her regency left a powerful impression. It proved that Maria Anna was more than consort. She was capable of ruling. Her intelligence, faith, and experience had prepared her for this moment, and she met it with dignity. Though her regency would last only a few months, it became a defining chapter, one that revealed the full depth of her leadership and loyalty to the empire. By the year 1645, Maria Anna's health had begun to falter. Years of pregnancies, court duties, and the stress of war had taken their toll. Yet despite her weakening body, she once again became pregnant, her 7th known pregnancy, a final act of duty to the Habsburg dynasty. As the imperial family relocated to Linz that summer to escape military threats near Vienna, Maria Anna continued to fulfill her role as empress, but her condition worsened. She became bedridden, plagued by fever, weakness, and complications from the pregnancy. Doctors and priests were summoned, yet little could be done. The imperial court grew hushed with dread. On the 13th of May in the year 1646, Maria Anna gave birth, but complications arose almost immediately. That same day, on the 13th of May, Maria Anna passed away at the age of just 39, and her newborn daughter lived only a few hours. The court was plunged into mourning. Ferdinand, devastated, withdrew from public life for weeks, unable to face the emptiness left behind. Her death shocked the empire. She had been more than a figurehead. She was a guiding presence, a bridge between Spanish and Austrian realms, a voice of reason in war. Her passing marked the end of an era of grace and diplomacy within the imperial household. Maria Anna died as she had lived, fulfilling her role with unwavering devotion. And in doing so, she reminded the world of the quiet cost of queenship, paid not in ceremony, but in sacrifice. Maria Anna's death sent shockwaves through the imperial court. Vienna, Linz, and Madrid each entered a period of formal mourning, their churches draped in black, their bells tolling in solemn procession. But the grief was more than ceremonial, it was personal. For the empire, she had been a symbol of stability. For Ferdinand, she had been a partner in power and life. Her funeral rites began in Linz, where masses were held in her honor, attended by nobles, clergy, and commoners alike. Her body, preserved with care, was transported to the imperial capital. In Vienna, memorial services filled the Hofburg Palace with candlelight and silence. From there, she was taken to her final resting place, the Capuchin Crypt, the burial site of the Habsburgs. Her coffin was placed among emperors and empresses, sealed beneath layers of marble and tradition. The funeral sermon praised her piety, wisdom, and maternal strength. Yet even the grandest words could not capture the full scope of her influence. In Spain, King Philip IV ordered commemorative prayers in every major cathedral. Letters of condolence poured in from across Europe, from France, the Papal States, and the Spanish Netherlands. Portraits of Maria Anna were draped in black lace, and coins bearing her likeness were kept as tokens of memory. Though she never ruled alone, her presence had shaped the empire. And in death, she became a symbol of loyalty, grace, and sacrifice. The imperial memory did not forget Maria Anna. It carried her forward as a model of the ideal Catholic empress. Maria Anna's most enduring legacy lived on through her children, especially in the continuation of the Habsburg line at a time when dynastic stability was under threat. Her most prominent son, Ferdinand IV, had already been crowned King of the Romans during her lifetime, marking him as the designated heir to the Holy Roman Empire. Ferdinand was intelligent and charismatic, much like his mother. He had inherited her strong Catholic values and sense of duty. Sadly, he would not live to fulfill his destiny. He died unexpectedly in 1654, at just 21 years of age. His death was a blow not only to Emperor Ferdinand III, but to the entire Habsburg succession plan. However, Maria Anna's younger children carried the legacy forward. Her son Leopold, born in 1640, rose to prominence after the death of his elder brother. Trained in the ideals his mother had instilled, piety, patience, and imperial loyalty. Leopold was eventually elected as Holy Roman Emperor in 1658. He would rule for nearly 5 decades and become one of the most significant Habsburg emperors in history. Through him, Maria Anna's influence endured. Her teachings shaped his policies, and her example guided his vision of imperial responsibility. Her daughters also served the dynasty through strategic marriages, strengthening alliances across Europe. Though Maria Anna had died young, the seeds she planted in her children flourished. Through their triumphs and trials, the Habsburg legacy survived, not in name alone, but in the values she had quietly, steadfastly passed on. Maria Anna of Spain entered history as a princess born into a vast and complex empire, but she departed it as an empress who shaped the destiny of 2 great realms. Her life was marked not by conquest or spectacle, but by endurance, wisdom, and an unshakable devotion to faith and family. Though her name is often overshadowed by emperors and generals, Maria Anna's legacy ran deep. She bridged the cultural and political divide between the Spanish and Austrian Habsburg branches, reinforcing unity during one of Europe's most turbulent centuries. She governed with restraint, influenced with gentleness, and led without demanding credit. Her courtly presence brought Spanish dignity to Vienna. Her counsel guided imperial strategy during the 30 Years' War, and her regency proved that women of the crown could rule with insight and balance. In a world where queens were often silent symbols, Maria Anna was a steady voice of reason. Even in death, she remained a symbol of dynastic strength. Her children, particularly Emperor Leopold I, extended her values across generations. Her portraits survived in palaces and chapels, and her memory endured in letters, liturgies, and the quiet echoes of Habsburg tradition. Maria Anna was, above all, a daughter of Spain, loyal, pious, and proud. But she became something more, an empress who crossed borders with grace, ruled with integrity, and proved that true power can reside not only in the throne, but in the heart and mind of the woman who stands beside it. History often remembers kings and conquerors, but the Habsburg dynasty was quietly held together by women like Anna of Austria and Maria Anna of Spain. Their stories, though rooted in separate courts and different generations, echo with the same rhythm: duty over desire, faith over freedom, silence over self. Yet in their quiet strength, they carried the weight of empires. Anna of Austria was the gentle core of a rigid monarchy. As queen to Philip II, she soothed a kingdom burdened by wars and religious unrest. Her calm presence balanced a king known for severity. Though married to her uncle in a union forged by blood and politics, she brought warmth, motherhood, and rare harmony to the Spanish court. Her life was brief, yet her influence endured through the son she bore, Philip III, and through the tone of grace she brought to Spain's golden but solemn age. Maria Anna of Spain, on the other hand, ruled not from a throne beside her husband, but often in his absence. She crossed borders and ideologies, from Catholic Spain to the heart of the Holy Roman Empire. She was not only empress, she was regent, strategist, and guardian of continuity in a fracturing world. In times of war and plague, she held together court and crown with the resilience learned from generations of Habsburg women before her, including her aunt, Anna. Both women faced sacrifices shaped by birth, not choice. They exchanged personal freedoms for dynastic stability, but within those confines, they each left a lasting imprint. They weren't simply wives and mothers. They were bridges between kingdoms, spiritual anchors of two courts, and protectors of tradition during some of Europe's most turbulent years. Together, they remind us that influence is not always loud. It can live in counsel given behind closed doors, in decisions that steer nations gently, and in the children raised to continue the fragile thread of royal legacy. In Anna and Maria Anna, we find the soul of the Habsburg dynasty, not forged in battlefield glory, but in private endurance and unwavering devotion. Their stories do not end with their deaths. They continue in the memories of courts, in the policies of sons, and in the echoes of queens who ruled from within rather than above. What do you think about Anna of Austria? Was Anna a dutiful queen who brought harmony to the most powerful throne in Europe, quietly influencing a king, guiding a court, and shaping the future of Spain through wisdom and piety? Or was she a tragic symbol of royal silence, married to her uncle, bound by protocol, and remembered more for her losses than her legacy? And what about Maria Anna of Spain? Was she an empress of true power, a trusted regent, a political partner, and the spiritual heart of the Holy Roman Empire? Or a woman torn by loyalty, faith, and duty, carrying the weight of empire on fragile shoulders until her final breath. We would love to hear your thoughts. Were these women silent shadows of royal dynasties or their steady guiding light? Did their quiet strength echo through generations, or were their sacrifices buried beneath the crowns they upheld? History often hides its strongest voices behind the throne, but their choices shaped nations and their legacies endure. Let us know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful tales from the past. Stories of courage, choice, and the quiet force behind history. Thank you so much for watching.